Yeah, sorry about that. I accidentally set "This is made for kids" when I restarted it because I didn't have it set up. Sorry about that. Come here, bud. Come here. Come here, bud. Come here. Come here. Do you want to say hi to everyone? Oh, are you a big orange cat? Look how big you are. You are a mega boy. What is it, bud? Skintanium armor. Yeah. I must be a robot. Why else would human women reject me? Oh, Fry. Lots of reasons. Yeah, I slapped together a new OBS scene. Just one camera because I wanted to save bandwidth. I also lowered the bandwidth to 2500 kilobits a second. It's not like the screen is moving a whole lot anyway. What is it, bud? Did you have to go on the back porch while I took a short nap? It's only like 50 degrees out. Is fine. That's why you have a fluffy fur coat. This camera has no sound? Stream Deck. Yeah, OBS has a lot of settings. This is pretty simple. I mean, I think I still have my settings from the 2022 live stream. So it was like, I think I had the camera set at 4K, so I could do like a wide view, and then I could do an instant zoom in just by switching to 1080. This is just a single source at 1080 to deal with the fact that the Windows laptop is getting older, or the software is making it slower, however you wish to look at it. So this is a right-handed controller. This is just like those McDonald's videos. Someone ordered 1,000 cheeseburgers. Can I make them? La, da, 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 da. Chair cam. Yeah, I didn't have the chair thing set up in OBS. I'd have to pump up the volume. The reason I disabled it is because I didn't want the webcam on the computer to be activated at all, even for audio, just in case that was causing lag. Actually, I don't see why that would make a difference, because it would just be computer audio. I'm sure it's completely separate from the webcam as hardware. What is it, bud? Are you being whiny? Are you a whiny cat? Whiny bud. Whiny bud. You should go back to your sleeping spot, so you can sleep all day, which is what you do. So the right-handed controller is easier to make because you don't have to rewire the buttons since they're already on the right-hand side. So hopefully we can knock this out in 2 hours, and then that will be it for the day. Maybe I will play Helldivers after. I probably won't. I've been playing that with Max and some of his friends. Max from the Ben Heck Show. Helldivers, if you haven't played it, it's the thing that makes it fun. It's kind of like goofing around with your friends and friendly fire kills and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. It's kind of like, it's like Starship Troopers Left 4 Dead. Reminds me of a lot of Left 4 Dead. He wants fed or pet. He has gotten both today. No, he is just a very whiny cat. He definitely eats enough, as you can see. He has an auto feeder. What is it, bud? Are you upset because I'm talking? Alright, so... squish that cat. All you gotta remember is just squish that cat. You don't have to worry about hurting a cat. Just squish that cat. And now we've just made friends with this great cat. After squishing it. So I can squish Bud, but he'll only accept it for like about 20 seconds. Typically, he only cuddles on his own terms. So if you like pick him up and like hold him or something, he's okay with it for a little while, but then he wants to go. But if he does want to cuddle, it's usually like if I take a nap or something or lay down, and then he'll be like, oh, I'm gonna like nestle into your arms or whatever, and then that's when he'll cuddle. Or like if I'm watching TV, which I don't do a whole lot, and by that I mean like in my living room playing video games. Like he'll like jump up and like lay on my lap and be like, I am here now. I was fixing one of these a couple years ago, and that's when I sliced open my thumb. I think, oh yeah, I remember the part from earlier where, no, that's not it. I had the face buttons on this circuit board. So what I used to do is I would just glue the buttons directly onto the face. I would use the laser to make a jig, a pattern, then I'd glue them on the wire. So I was repairing a controller, and I was doing this. I was like, trying to get the old switch off. I was like, and then it was like, that's what makes knives. So then it was like, boom! And it was like that. Actually, I don't know if you can see the line. They stitched it up really nice. But it was about that far. So, I did. Luckily, the urgent care is very close to here, so I didn't bleed on my car. That was one of those things where like, oh, that's a lot of blood. I guess I gotta go to the doctor. Yeah. So try not to do that. You know. That's what they always tell you in Boy Scouts: cut away from yourself. Yeah. You remind me of the time when my stepdad got himself with a chainsaw. I had to drive him to the clinic. Oh man. It was just like the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know, some like old dudes are like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if he just wasn't careful or whatnot. Like, yeah, it was very much like the end of Texas Chainsaw, where Leatherface like hits himself in the leg with a chainsaw. And, yeah. So dumb. So be careful. Yeah, Bud was pretty quiet earlier. 7:44. Usually this time of night. He'd be like laying in his bed underneath. Yeah, and upstairs where I have the Texas Chainsaw Pinball. One of his beds is under there. He has another bed. Actually, I think Max bought it for him because Max had the same bed for his cat. But Max's cat is like really old. That was the cat that was like in the final episode of Ben Heck's show. His name is Gus. Gus is like... Well, now Gus is like really old. Kind of looks like Clint Eastwood now. Like Gus, well, Gus was never as big as Bud. But he was, he was a chunky orange cat. But then once he turned around 14, he just like... It's crazy. Like he lost all of his weight. And he turned blind. So... Whenever I see Gus, it's like seeing a fast-forward version of Bud. Because we had a... This is so dumb. We did a cat play date once, and that was back when Bud was still like a young cat. Bud was probably only like 5 months old. And so you're probably not supposed to do that, but Max brought over Gus. And I think we watched some movie on the back porch, because that was back during... the times when people were being cautious. So I had my old DLP on the back porch. That was like the COVID TV, I guess you could call it. And so Gus and Bud, they didn't fight, but they did swat at each other. But they were pretty cordial. But now, now like Bud could probably kill Gus in like a single swoop. So I wouldn't want him to interact now. It's like Bud would be like, now I have become the master blob. I'm actually surprised Gus is still alive. Gus is like, imagine like a cat that used to be almost as big as Bud, but now he weighs like 4 pounds. That's how much weight he lost. It's really kind of scary. Like you can see his spine and everything. Well, I wouldn't say he's doing all right, but he's still like friendly. You can still pet him and stuff. Elementary school? Oh my god, yeah. Oh, my sister's in the chat. Yeah, Gus is still alive, Kree. I don't know how, but he's still alive. He's very old. Actually, he's probably about as old as Trash Cat was when she was done. Dun 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 dun. What is it? He's still mewing. Torty friend? Like a turtle? Diabetes? Yeah, it's weird to like... Cause I have the photos from when Gus and Bud got to have a play date, and Bud is like small and Gus is like big, and now it's so weird to like look at those photos because it's completely inversed. The vet wanted Bud to eat diet food. Well, I told the vet straight out, like, last time, because every time, like, I took him to the vet, he'd be, like, 2 pounds heavier. And they're like, well, he needs to have diet food. And the last time I was like, well, you know, you don't have to work from home with a needy orange cat. And like, if you try to undercrank his food, it makes him upset. So I got him an automatic feeder so I can undercrank his food a little bit. So anyway, the vet was like, oh, give him this diet food. And I mixed it in 50-50 with his existing food, and he threw up 4 times in 2 days, and I'm like, yeah, this ain't happening. So I just dialed back his auto feeder by 1 portion. So, I don't know. Hopefully I can keep him at 17. Well, since he acts like a dog, as I mentioned, like, if I make food, he, like, right under my feet, and so probably at least once a month I step on him accidentally. And so, well, that's what you get for being under my feet. But sometimes I give him human food, and I probably shouldn't. Like, he loves... Well, his favorite human food is beef jerky. So if I have, like, a piece of beef jerky, I'll cut, like, a little bit off the end and give it to him. But then he goes crazy. So as I am going to eat the rest of it myself, he goes absolutely nuts. He'll, like, jump on my shoulders and stuff and, like, lean over my face. He goes crazy for that. He also goes crazy for, like, lunch meat. So if I'm making, like, like a turkey sandwich or a ham sandwich, oh my god, he goes crazy for that stuff too. So I'll give him a piece. And then if I have bacon, if there's like a piece of bacon that's like overcooked or I don't want to eat it, I'll give it to him. Oh. Yeah. It's weird. He used to eat like starch. Like, there was a time where he would eat French fries, but now he doesn't. Probably the better. But yeah. Human food. Or if I have like a bowl of not beef jerky, a beef stew. After I finish, I'll give him the bowl and he'll like lick it clean. Now there's other things he won't eat, which is kind of weird. Bud, are you scratch? Bud, stop! Don't scratch that. Come over here, Bud. I'll squish you. A greenie dispensing treadmill. I made him I designed my own greenie dispensing ball, and I printed it out of polycarbonate with the carbon, or the X1C carbon, and it worked really well because it was a sphere about this big, and then there was a chute, so the greenies would have to go into the chute, and then he'd have to roll the ball upside down so the greenies would drop out of the chute. And because of the way the 3D print, there's more mass at the bottom, so the default was for the sphere to be on the ground with the chute at the top. So he would have to actually actively roll it and keep rolling it in order to get the greenies out. And he could, if I put in like 5 greenies, he could empty it in about 20 minutes, I'd say. It didn't take him very long. Kind of running out of colors here. I got black. I guess that would work. It's not the best. But then inevitably the greenie ball would fall down the basement stairs, so you hear clunk, 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 clunk. And I don't know where it is at the moment. If it's where it usually ends up, it's probably under the basement stairs. I haven't seen it in a couple weeks. I imagine that's where it is. So I guess it's like, how many times can the polycarbonate 3D printed green ball survive a trip down the stairs? And yes. It's probably survived at least 5 trips down the stairs. Oh crap, that's not what you want to have happen. So that would keep him busy for about 20 minutes. But, yeah. I guess I gotta, like, crawl under the stairs and find it. Any like, chew toy I give him inevitably ends up in the basement. Not just that, it always ends up in the basement at the opposite side of under the stairs, which is where all the server stuff is. That's probably... So he's got a bunch of soft toys sitting there, and then the greenie ball is probably nearby. What is it, Bud? Bud, are you going to become a streamer cat? Are you going to be a PewDiePie cat? I mean, I would love it if Bud could go outside and like burn off some energy, but there's just way too many dogs in the neighborhood there, and I don't know. I'd be worried about him getting hit by a car. He's not too scared of cars. Like, I can take him on the front porch and he'll watch a car go by without mauling me to death in fear, but I don't know. Although he could probably beat up at least half the dogs in the neighborhood, because there's all these like little pocket dogs that are actually smaller than him. But then there's some big dogs he'd probably be pretty scared of. He's met dogs. Doggo friends have come to visit like twice, I want to say. He doesn't go up to them, but he also doesn't run away. He'll like be like in a standoff at like 4 feet, and his tail puffs up. So he's curious, but he doesn't want to get near him. Ben Heck, when you order your YouTuber from Wisconsin. Hey, Red Letter Media is from Wisconsin. Oh my god! Now this controller has white innards, so it's actually much easier to see. Let's see, where's the mark? Which is not easy to... There it is. Right? Wish.com. I'm the Wish.com Adam Savage, right? I would think it'd be cool to see what Bud would do if a flock of turkeys, if he was outside and a flock of turkeys came by. I would think he would chase them? Or would he be scared of them? I don't know. I don't. Rip. Bud, are you the Wish.com Garfield? Are you Chris Pratt? Chris Pratt cat. It's too bad they didn't keep John Krasinski in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because then you could have Reed Richards and Star-Lord team up, so you'd have both of the NBC guys. How cool would it have been if they have kept John Krasinski as Reed Richards and then had his wife Emily Blunt be Susan Storm? That would have been awesome. It's so obvious. But nope. Put Doctor Strange's magic ring into Jello. All right. It's also kind of funny, like both of those actors have made a whole bunch of movies where they're like tough Marines fighting terrorists. Because he had like, there's a couple, yeah, John Krasinski was in that one movie about, not Baghdad. What was that thing? It was that thing in Libya. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was a Michael Bay movie. And then Chris Pratt was in Zero Dark 30. He was one of the guys that like in the movie that killed Bin Laden. And yeah, it's kind of funny. They have a lot of similar roles. So if your success is to get jacked and then make a bunch of military movies. All right, let's go back to this. Let's see. I saw Ghostbusters last night and it was okay. I'm getting kind of too old for this stuff. Yeah, I think my sister went to see that last week. Yeah, Ghostbusters was like lightning in a bottle. Really, it should have just stayed in 1984. Like, I never thought the sequel was very good. I know some people like it, but I didn't. I actually didn't mind the 2016 one. It didn't need to exist, but it was all right as a movie. And then Afterlife was okay. If anything, I liked Afterlife better. And then when the old guy showed up, it's like, ugh. Kind of reminded me of The Force Awakens. The movie got worse when Harrison Ford showed up. He's like, "Get off my spaceship lawn." Red Letter Media talked about that. I think that was like back when they did the review of Crystal Skull. And it's like, everyone wants to be a 38-year-old Harrison Ford. You go around punching Nazis and every woman wants to be with you. Nobody wants to be 75 years old. If you lived Indiana Jones's life and you lived that long, you would look like this. And then there was like a Photoshop of like a horribly decrepit body and his face was all like broken up and stuff. And yeah, it's true. Like he wouldn't be able to walk by the time he got to that age. You're going to have a lot of pain when you get older, Dalton. Beetlejuice 2, no, I don't know. I never really cared for Beetlejuice that much. Although me and my sister used to watch the cartoon a lot. I think that's where she got her daughter's name from. Wasn't it, Curry? Fess up! I mean, I think I love Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is so awesome. I don't know. Maybe I'd go see it just like to see Michael Keaton be like, Beetlejuice. Man, I didn't even watch The Flash yet. Because the thing is, you can just go on YouTube and see all the scenes with Michael Keaton, and so you don't need to bother with the rest of the movie. Because that's all I would care about. Because Michael Keaton Batman is best. Working on Atari 2600 Junior Portable. Is it the one with the single chip or the more normal 3-chip one? Normal 3-chip 2600 portable. It's really no different than the old, like the 2600, like the 2600 version, like the 1980 version. It's pretty much the same. I think they use a different reset circuit. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. I mean, if you open it up, you'll notice. Well, actually, I don't know if did the regular one have the. Because they were originally going to ship that with like missile command or something built in, so we're going to have a built-in ROM, but that won't really affect the build. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's just It was just cost reduced, although really not that much, because it's, again, unless it's a single chip version, which is incredibly rare, it's pretty much the same as the 1980 version. I don't know, all these like movies like, oh, Ghostbusters Frozen Land or Beetlejuice 10, like getting something like Top Gun Maverick seems like it's the rare exception, not the rule. Like, I'll go see Furiosa, but I mean, is it going to be like amazing like Fury Road was? It's like, I don't know if they can strike lightning twice. Because like that movie should have sucked, especially considering its production history, but it was amazing. I guess we'll see. Maybe they could make like a Ghostbusters TV show. You know, in the original movie, he's like, the franchising rights alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams. So, yeah, maybe it could be like Ghostbusters, like Atlanta or something, because they film everything in Atlanta now. And be like, I got a Ghostbusters franchise. And then, because really, Ghostbusters was, it was like blue-collar workers that started a business. Oh, and they shot ghosts. Well, the reason she thinks she was named after Lydia is because she was named after Lydia. Oh yeah, the Ghostbusters cartoon was that was the big thing back then. But yeah, I saw a review where they said that the new Ghostbusters movie was kind of like the cartoon, where it was like a ghost of the week, kind of like X-Files. I don't know, I think that's probably the way to do it. Because you can't really, I mean, you can't really easily make a movie in New York anymore. It's too expensive. I mean, you would never make, like, well, yeah, you just wouldn't make it there anymore. I did really like the part in the 2016 Ghostbusters where they try to rent the firehouse, and then they tell them the rent is like $35,000 a month or whatever, and they're like, oh, we'll pass. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Ah! Great. Although, you know, the biggest problem I had with 2016 Ghostbusters is, for all of, like, the Office pedigree that was involved in that movie, it wasn't very funny. Like, I thought the storytelling was fine, and like, some aspects were like, show them developing the tech, kind of like Iron Man. I actually thought that was better, because it's like, yeah, let's explain how this works, even if it's all pseudoscience. But yeah, it just wasn't really that funny of a movie. That was my issue. And it should have been, given the talent, but I don't know, maybe they just don't have as well as, you know, they did in the old movie. Or maybe they relied too much on ad-lib. So maybe the Office pedigree was a negative for them. And another big problem is The original movie was written by Dan Aykroyd, who is like far crazier in real life than his character, Ray Stantz. Like all the Crystal Skull vodka and the conspiracies and stuff. Like he's like a total. He's into all of that stuff. Like he believes in all of it. Like I don't know what there was some interview once. It might have been Joe Rogan where he was talking about what was it? He was like, I purchased a home in Los Angeles and in the state of California. You're required by law to tell someone if anyone was ever murdered in the house they're trying to sell. So one night I was sleeping and then I felt the presence of a ghost in bed with me, and I could feel it spooning me. I felt that it was a male presence. And then he's telling the story, and you realize, oh, this is where he got the idea for that scene in Ghostbusters, when he's sleeping. But yeah, I mean, but that passion, that's what I think was really missing from the new ones. Like, where, you have a talented writer, and he is totally into all this stuff. Because he's not writing these new ones. He just collects a paycheck on screen. It's kind of interesting, like with those old movies, like the year that it came out, Ghostbusters was not the biggest hit movie of that year. Beverly Hills Cop was. But Beverly Hills Cop didn't really stay in the public consciousness as much. Like, nobody... Well, actually, I think Netflix did actually make a new Beverly Hills Cop movie, which is coming out soon, but, it wasn't like people weren't... dressing up for Halloween like Beverly Hills Cop for like 5 Halloweens in a row or anything. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe just it was a product of its time. And that's the thing. Like nowadays, since all they make are makes and reboots, it's like nowadays they would never make a Ghostbusters. They would never take the risk on something like that because they would just... Well, think about it. Like if they were remaking movies from 30 years ago in the 80s... we would have never gotten Ghostbusters or Gremlins. We would have gotten like a remake of like The Robe or The Ten Commandments or All About Eve. We would have never gotten all those classic high concept films. And, most of them are like, big hits. I mean, there's also like a million like Star Wars ripoffs that weren't big hits, but nobody really remembers them. But again, they weren't really being that original. They'd be like, oh, let's make Kroll and it's just Star Wars. Or let's make Flash Gordon and it's just Star Wars. Or let's make the Black Hole and it's just Star Wars. Well, Black Hole was not just Star Wars, but, it was trying to be like Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, really, you need risk again. You need to make cheaper, riskier movies. The 2009 Ghostbusters game. I bought that. I got bored of it a few levels in, but then actually, just a year or two ago, because Xbox Series X has like insane backwards compatibility, and it's so easy. And they're like, oh, you own this game digitally on the Xbox 360. Here it is. Oh, and here's your save files. Like 12 years later, and then I was able to just finish it. It was pretty good. And even like Bill Murray acted like he was maybe sort of giving half a shit when he made it. So yeah, it was pretty good. It felt like a proper third movie. Cuz like they in that game, it's like they basically became like government contractors. So they're like the EPA of ghosts. So, like, they had a lot of, like, lore building with that kind of stuff, and, it was pretty good. I know what the movie Battle Beyond the Stars is. I've never seen it. That was another one. That was actually, that was the first movie where James Cameron had a major credit. He was the art director on that film. That was supposed to be one of the better Star Wars ripoffs. Ironically, from the low-budget Corman studio. Excuse me. Do 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 do. The glitch in the Matrix. I saw two buds. Whoa. Oh yeah, the Thing was great. Yeah, it's weird, like, John Carpenter kind of, I don't know, I mean, I like The Thing way better than Halloween, but yeah, it wasn't a success. I mean, really, if they, the movie they should remake, They Live would be very, 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 very relevant. Way more, I think if you make a movie, and if the premise of the movie is more relevant than when it came out, that's what you should remake, like Logan's Run or They Live. Let's see here. So this goes like this. This one has to be a little different because the analog stick is on the other side. Yeah, movie I watched, because I don't watch that many movies anymore, but I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the new Dungeons & Dragons movie. I mean, I love the one with Jeremy Irons because it's so bad, but the new Dungeons & Dragons movie was actually a good, solid movie. I was kind of surprised. Because I saw the trailers and it seemed like an almost like embarrassing ripoff of Guardians of the Galaxy. And it did kind of feel like Chris Pine felt like he was Chris Pratt in a different movie. I mean, he was still good in it, but it did seem yeah, it seemed like he was like, oh, am I in a Marvel movie or what am I in? But yeah, I mean, I liked that movie. That was good. It was a very solid film. Ice Pirates. I think I've seen it, but I don't remember it. James Cameron was hired and fired. Yeah, not a surprise. He was, well, he still is. And that happened with Piranha, too, as well. The first movie he directed was a sequel to Piranha. Because Piranha was a Joe Dante film before he did Ghostbusters. And then they made a sequel called Piranha 2, and that was the first movie Cameron actually directed. And then he got fired from it. And then he tried to break in and re-edit it or something. Then he got caught. And then I think it was being made in like Spain or something. So then he was like completely broke and he had to like hitch a ride home in the belly of a ship to get back to America or Canada. And he says that's where he had the inspiration for Titanic. Like the guy, the Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, I guess he wasn't a stowaway because he had a ticket, but yeah. All right, let's make sure everything is in place. Gotta make sure the rubber's right. Fun mods to boring old stock consoles. Oh yes, I'm glad you enjoy it. Anymore, I kind of like making my own stuff instead of modding old consoles, like make the game badge and then just write my own game, like the Bud game. That's kind of what I find more interesting these days. Though I am slowly, I want to make like actual hardware handheld Atari 2600, kind of like I did in the last episode of the show, but make like a kit of that, so people well, I'd probably just take the circuit boards to shows and like give them away, or people could make their own circuit boards and then find their own chips, and yeah. One thing I might get stuff like if I make the keyboard out of like tack switches, I might get that done from like PCBWay or something. So the thing with that, I was researching it yesterday. The disk interface. I'm not quite sure. Oh, I've been thinking. I'm like trying to figure out the disk interface because the ones I built before had Mr. Atari My IDE, but using a compact flash is like. There's another one that a lot of people use. It's called SIO to PC, or I'm sorry, SIO to SD, and I think you basically use an Arduino. So you basically put Atari disk images on an SD card, and then when this chip or whatever you've programmed gets the commands over the SIO bus, the command would be like, hey, give me sector 58 from the disk. and then it just loads Sector 58 off the SD card and then sends it over the bus. So if I the Atari hardware, then you connect that to the SIO to SD, and then you would. I think you could do it really easy with the Atmel AT Mega 32U4. That would have a USB connection, so you could connect that to an SD card, then connect one of its serial ports to the Atari Pokey, because the Atari Pokey has a it's pretty much it's not pretty much, it is, it's a 19200 baud RS232 serial connection. So that could talk to the chip, and then the chip's USB port could talk to the computer. So if you hooked it up to something like Atari Peripheral Emulator or Respect, your PC could then act as like disk 2. So it would act as a daisy chain drive after the SIO to SD device. So that way you could transfer data from your computer onto the SD card. Well, I guess you could also drop ATR images into it as well. That would probably be the best way to do it, because then you wouldn't have to use a custom ROM or anything. I would like to make it, I just have to like find the time. So see, this one wires up a little differently because I have to avoid the right analog stick. And then all I gotta do is port Planet X to it. Or no, I'm sorry, Attack of the Petsky Robots. Iron Sky, you know, I want to say I watched that once and I actually fell asleep. So that's not good, because it takes a lot for me to fall asleep during the movie. Well, alcohol might have been involved. Like, Nazis on the Moon sounds like a great plot, but I just remember the movie being like really, really bad. Or not engaging, which is even worse than being bad. Like, Batman and Robin is a terrible film, but it's also hilarious. So at least you're never bored. Like, the worst thing you can do is bore an audience. Like, Neil Breen would never do that. Neil Breen respects us. Max and I had talked about, like, well, I doubt either of us will have the time anytime soon, but we were talking about making like a cheesy movie. We wanted to make we were going to call it Placentapede. It was going to be about all these waste placentas that get put into a dump or something. They get hit by lightning and then turns into like this placentapede that goes around sucking the juices out of people. Yeah, that's about as far as we got. But that was the inspiration for the YouTube video where I had ChatGTP write a movie with the same premise. So I'd already thought about that premise. I just wanted to see what an AI would do with it, and it was kind of the same thing we were thinking. Of course, I had prompted it to have like the main character be a pregnant female cop. So this is the tricky part. Oh yeah, why not solder to test points? I mean, they're test points. Like, they're a little small on this controller, but at least they're there, unlike the PlayStation 3, 4, or 5. What are we going to do next? How about PlayStation 6? I love it. I wonder if they'll ever change the name of PlayStation. Like PlayStation Wii. Or Xbox 360. So the Xbox 2 wouldn't have to go up against the PlayStation 3. And make no mistake, that's the only reason they did that. Well, marketing tells us that certain grandmas would be confused by the numbering system, so we have to get a 3 in there. So dumb. Oh, yes, we have to call the Nintendo Entertainment System the Nintendo 8500, because that's more than 5200. A Nest satellite multi-tap? I don't see why not. I mean, all that stuff, all you would need is you would just need a booster that takes a LiPo and boosts it to 5 volts, and then that's all you would need. They're pretty common. You can get them on Amazon. You would look for, the search term would be LiPo charger with boost. And there's a, very ubiquitous one that Adafruit makes, the Adafruit Power Boost 1000. Although, there's also plenty of like cheap generic ones you could also get. Actually, I've been exploring some of that stuff because I want to use it for that Atari thing I mentioned. Like I was looking at like the simplest way to do power negotiation on USB-C, and it turns out the simplest way to do it, well, assuming the power is what you need, is there's 2 like charge controller lines, and you just pull them both down with a 5.1K resistor, and that will tell the wall wart to give you 5 volts at 3 amps, which would be plenty for most things. But yeah, typically when you have USB-C, like your phone will be like, give me 15 volts at 2 amps. And then if you have like a laptop that uses USB-C, it would be like, give me 20 volts, which is the maximum current, or maximum voltage. Give me 20 volts at 2 amps. So all those USB-C wall warts can deliver multiple voltages, but you have to tell them what to do. And yeah, like I said, you can use a couple of resistors to do it, but normally there's usually some logic. So they do, they negotiate the power. That's the term they use. All right, so the middle one is ground, and this one is signal. You have played a large role in my career in YouTube content. Thank you. Well, thank you for watching. Yeah, it's crazy now. Like, I've been doing this internet stuff. This is like, it's been half my life now. Since I was 24 when I did my first, like, it's like, oh, this guy did this cool thing. I was 24 years old. And now I'm 48. And I'm still around. Bela Lugosi, he's still alive. Well, sort of. Eddie, I'm so broke. Hey, you guys know when I did that, oh, that's kind of ironic. Boogie Dark Wings. Boogie Dark Wings. I wonder what that's in reference to. The Billy Mitchell thing. I was actually just thinking about, not Billy Mitchell, but Jace Hall. That episode with Todd Rogers on the show that we did. Well, regarding Billy Mitchell, that last thing they had with like the expert witness. That expert witness is he's a complete fraud. Everything he talked about is just BS, like draping cables over the edge of things and not having a sync signal. It's like, apples. Like, if there's no sync signal, you don't have a picture, idiot. Basically, it was just a bunch of mumbo jumbo to, like, confuse a jury enough, or, well, not a jury, but confuse boomers enough to not pursue the case. I couldn't believe that one. I think, who was talking about that? Mudahar was talking about that, and he was going into detail about the expert testimony, and it's like, oh, this is a complete crock of crap. So that's what I thought about the latest Gemma. I've met Billy Mitchell. I mean, I've been at conventions with him, and I've ridden to the airport with him and stuff, and not a big fan. Also, his hot sauce is incredibly mid. It's like, why is it's like peaked in high school. It's like, dude, just run your chicken restaurant and who cares, right? Like, who cares? But the reason I was actually just thinking about that was because the one time I was on Jace Hall's show, that was like, oh god, 2008, I want to say. So that's how I knew Jace Hall. And Jace Hall owns Twin Galaxies. And there is a point to the story, I swear. So he sends his intern to pick me up from the hotel. And she's got like this crappy old minivan. It was like really old, you know. It was like a 1990s minivan, and it was really like decrepit. I mean, I'm not saying anything against her or anything, but the reason I bring this up is because it reminds me of my favorite movie, Ed Wood. So and we shot that video on the Warner Brothers lot. And so, actually, I still have my pass from that. So we pull up to the same gate that's in Ed Wood in this crappy minivan that's like plup, 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 plup. It was just like the scene in Ed Wood where he goes to Warner Brothers with his crappy car, and then he's like, "I'm Edward D. Wood Jr. I'm here to see whoever it was." And then the guy looks at his car, and then he puts the pass on the windshield, and it was the same thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm living a scene from my favorite movie. I was just so thrilled. So anyway, that's how I knew Jace Hall. And then so many years later when they had the dragster controversy, that's why Jace, you know, we already knew each other, so Jace was like, hey man, could you build this hardware that could test, because what was that guy named? Omni-Man or Omni? The guy that like was like, hey, I don't believe this score. So Jace was like, this was like, you know, like many years later after the Ed Wood scene. Jace was like, hey, could you build hardware that would test to see if this guy's theory works on real hardware as well as the emulator? Basically to like rule it out. Like, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it, on an emulator it does this, but what about real hardware? And so that was the reason I built that. And that was a really fun. People ask me like how I feel about it, and for me, it was just like I was just forensic analysis to me. I actually kind of felt bad for Todd, like when we were filming it. But the thing that I thought was really fun was like just building the device, because I put in like circuitry, like when the 6502, or in that case the 6507, when it reads RAM, I think it's either when it reads RAM or it increments RAM in 6502 assembly, it'll actually ping the RAM twice. So you'll see the same opcode twice. So I had to like in hardware make it so that it would mask double opcode reads to make sure that the values it was duplicating was exactly what was in RAM. So then by duplicating the values in RAM, you could trigger the system to act exactly the way you wanted. Like you could say, okay, because there was like a 9-frame rule, I want to say. Like when you pushed reset to start the game, depending on which one of 9 frames you were on, that would affect your total possible score. So with that rig, I could make it so that it would only ever start the test on the most optimal frame rule. Therefore, instead of testing a bunch of scenarios where you couldn't get the max possible score, every time it ran the test, you had the conditions to get the max possible score. And what we discovered, as you saw in the episode, was that Omni's theory about the code was correct. We weren't able to Well, we weren't able to get past the value, and then we also everything that happened in real hardware matched the predictions of Omni simulation. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's my story. So for me, I mean, I got to relive a scene from my favorite movie. So that's all I really care about. That was enough for me. 2D makes Xboxes that could survive actual war. Yeah. They had a Ubisoft wanted me to make. Ubisoft had a thing where they wanted. I think it was for. What was the Far Cry in the Himalayas? Was that Far Cry 4? They wanted an Xbox that could be taken to the top of Mount Everest. And I remember talking to them about the project in the cafeteria of the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Because I was like, guys, I got to talk to Ubisoft real quick. This is probably like 2012 or 2013. No, it would have been summer. It would have been summer of 2014, and I didn't have enough time to build that project. I think they did find someone to actually build it, but that was kind of funny. So they actually wanted it, but it was so dumb. It was like that game came out in like November of 2014, and they were asking for this like in June, I think, of 2014. So the timeline was way too short. But yeah, I don't know. If I would have had more time, I probably would have done it. I think that would have been an Xbox One. Yeah. I don't know. I was just visiting Johnson Space Center. I don't know. I love NASA stuff. Although, oh man, I was really jealous of Charlie from Spooky Pinball. Because like once Spooky Pinball became cool or whatever, actually one of the guys they worked with works at NASA. So Charlie and his family went down to the Space Center, and they got the behind the scenes tour, and they got to hang out with Adam Savage, who happened to be there at the time. And I was like, ah! Oh well. I've been there a couple times. Like look at like the Saturn V rocket, classic mission control. Yeah, I love space stuff because it's like it's engineering and exploration all in one. How far are we from a co-box? What's a co-box? Oh, I'm sorry, soft alloy. So I am modifying this controller so a person with only the use of their right hand can play video games. This is a mod I've been performing for people since 2006, and I still build them. The only time I paused was a few years, 2016, 2017. I actually Felix was doing it instead because I was so freaking busy. I'm kind of freaking busy again, but back then it was nuts. It was like, oh, I'm doing pinball on the side, I'm doing the show full time, and I'm building these controllers. So there were a lot of times when we'd film for like 8 hours a day or build things for 8 hours a day, and then I would just stay in the shop until like 8 o'clock building one of these, like on a weekday. And I was like, oh, no, this is too much. So I was like, hey, Felix, you're in school and you have a kid. Like, you want to earn some extra money? So he did it for a while. But then when we stopped doing the show, I resumed it because he got a little, he did get a little overwhelmed with it as well. And then during like COVID, like in 2020, I built the most of these I ever built because I guess everyone died. And the thing that sucked was that, remember when Amazon was doing that thing where they only ship you essential things? That was BS. I buy these off Amazon like that spring. I was going on eBay and scrounging whatever I could find because the orders were coming in, but yeah. Best Buy didn't have any. Amazon wouldn't ship me any. It was kind of lame. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure the old podcasts are still on my website, the benheck.com. And benheck.com is still active, but really all it is anymore is you go there to order a controller. But all the old content is still there. The forums are still there. The podcast on the server. I should like touch base with Jones sometime. I know he got remarried. I just haven't talked to him in years. God, I don't think we've hung out since before COVID. Yeah, probably the last time was when we had Bad Movie Night. Oh, that Felix was there too. Yeah, that was the night where Felix was wearing the same shirt as Chris Pratt in a Jurassic Park movie. Yeah. Look at that. See, this one's easy to make. Oh. A Blatz? God. Blatz, huh? I mean, I guess I would drink it, but... Xbox on a chip? Well, what do you mean by Xbox? Do you mean like Xbox, the latest one? Because if you look at something like the Switch is probably like what, like an Xbox 360? So they got like some pretty powerful ARM silicon out there these days. I think it's going to be more interesting to see when Microsoft Windows goes ARM and, well, actually that might never happen because of legacy stuff, but it would be funny. Like ARM, Linux, Microsoft. Or Windows. I have people, they're like, oh, Ben, you should switch to Linux or whatever. And I'm like, I can't. I have to use Adobe products for work. And they do not run on Linux. Although I know DaVinci Resolve is supposed to be like the cool new editor program too, like everything else. Hello from Iowa. Finally had Kevin Rose. Yeah, I've met Kevin Rose. I mean, yeah, a million zillion years ago. Actually, when I was at Texas Pinball Festival 2 weekends ago, I ran into the founder of Revision 3. he was in Dallas, Texas at the pinball show of all things, and yeah, that was crazy because we used to work with Revision 3 back in the old days of the show, and yeah, he had recently, as is, like, yeah, just outside Ann Arbor, Michigan. So yeah, he's like, yeah, I moved from Marin County to Ann Arbor. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. So yeah, it was fun to reminisce with him. Yeah, screensavers. That was so long ago. That was crazy. Many, many years ago. One of my favorite people to hang out with at these shows and stuff is Joe Balser, the pinball designer. He did Simpsons Pinball Party. He did like Wizard of Oz and The Hobbit for JJP, and yeah. Oh, then he was at American Pinball. Joe is so much fun. Well, he also likes to network, quote unquote. But yeah, it's weird because he's like this engineer pinball guy, but you talk to him and you think he's like a dock worker from Boston. He's like, yeah, what's going on? Yeah. I haven't, actually, last time I saw him, it was at MGC. I think it was one of the times after COVID. It was probably like 2019 or 2020. And I didn't run into him until like 2 a.m., like at the very end of the after party. Like when everyone was like leaving the after party. I'm like, ah, man, he was here the whole night, and I didn't even talk to him to the very end, and then it was like too late to hang out. So, maybe he'll be at MGC next week, and that would be great, because I love hanging out with Joe. So yeah, you go to the shows, and yeah, it's like you hang out with people, and I'm always happy to talk to people. And if there's ever a time where I feel I might seem like I'm being rude or something, I mean, I am a pretty hardcore, blunt person. But I always try to be nice to people, like people that I meet in public. But yeah, if I remember like terse or something, you got to remember, like at one of those shows, if you talk to me at 10 p.m., it's probably like my 200th conversation of the day, and you know it kind of wears you down. So sometimes that's kind of a struggle to keep up the energy so that you don't seem like a jerk. All right, we're really close. Skinwalker. Oh, Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, I watched the first season of that. I mean, I love UFOs and crap, but I watched the first season of that on Netflix or whatever it was, and that show was complete. It kind of reminded me of that expert Billy Mitchell witness I was talking about. Like, everything in that show was just stupid pseudoscience. It's so stupid. And then he had that guy who just walks around holding a shotgun the whole time. It's like, oh, that's safe. Like, oh, you don't have a shoulder strap? No, he's got to be holding the shotgun, so it looks like this is dangerous. And they're like, oh, we shot a beam at some rocks and light bounced off of it. I can't believe what's going. Aliens? It's like, oh my god, it's so unscientific. I watched like a couple episodes and I finished watching the season just to kind of like hate watch it. I have abusive traits, thanks. Adam said, yeah, no, Netbug, I actually have done that at MGC in the past. My disguise is I dress like Python Angelo, the deceased crazy pinball designer. So I'll put on my Australian hat from Posthumous Man 2, my fishing vest, khaki pants, and my prescriptions. Really well. I'm all X 23, and I'm my disguise. And I remember I saw Jersey Jack Guanari from Jersey Jack Pinball. I hadn't seen Jack in years, and I think he had like a health issue too. So I think he might have had a stroke, which is unfortunate. But anyway, I probably hadn't talked to Jack in like 4 years at that point. And so I go up to him and I wait for him to finish talking to whoever. And so I start talking to him, and yeah, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, so then I take off my sunglasses. He's like, oh, it's you. He didn't recognize me. So I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah. So then he gave me a hug because I hadn't seen him in a while. Like, Jack's a pretty nice guy. I always like Jack. But yeah, that disguise really worked. Although I can't remember what it was. It was like, oh god, I can't remember. It was, I think it was at Chicago Pinball Expo, like 2017. And I think, yeah, and that was before I got like COVID-19 pounds. And I was at one of the after parties, and I was talking to Eugene Jarvis, and Eugene was like, he was like, it's Ben. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And he's like, and then I'm like, yeah, I know, I gained weight doing the show. He didn't want to say it, and so I said it for him. So that was kind of fun. Eugene Jarvis is also a very, very awesome person, like a freaking legend. Yeah, so I guess it is one cool thing about going to those shows. It's like you go there, and I think about that sometimes, like when I watch Classic Game Room, because he still like makes videos every so often, and he talks about like Eugene Jarvis and stuff. I'm like, oh man, it would be so cool to take Mark to like one of these Midwest shows, because then I could like introduce him to all these like legends. I don't know, maybe he's met him before, but I just think it's cool. It's like a nice ego boost, like that, you know, they remember you. It's like, oh yeah, it's you. Like, actually, I was in Texas, and I'd forgotten what Steve Ritchie's brother looked like. So we were doing the cigar night, the Big Smoke in Texas, and we were outside talking about something stupid, like I don't know what it was. We had some because I know Steve Ritchie, the pinball guy. He's got like this really crazy hair. Like all the pinball guys have really great hair. I don't know why. Steve Ritchie's very recognizable, but his brother just kind of looks like your average like 70-year-old man. And so we were outside hanging out, and then we were talking about pinball or something. I'm like, oh crap, it's Steve Ritchie. I'm sorry, Mark Ritchie. I completely forgot. And Mark Ritchie, the most recent game he did Pulp Fiction for American Pinball. So that was kind of crazy, because I was like, oh crap, because I haven't talked to him in probably like 5 years. Yeah, he's cool too. And the thing we were talking about is his brother and stuff. And then, yeah. So I guess that's one kind of cool thing, is like hanging out with like these legends, especially when they remember who you are. Do you only apply hot snot on the thinner wires? Well, the reason I put hot snot on those last wires is, it's not because I'm worried about the wires breaking. It's because I'd be worried about how they're soldered to the circuit board. I don't want them to like rip sideways and like rip up the pad. That would be the real danger. So I do it as a form of strain relief. And then on the left-handed controllers, like, so the rumble motors in these controllers are two different sizes. There's a small one and a large one. The one on the right is a small one, so you don't have to worry about the cable hitting it. But the one on the left, I'll actually like hot glue this cable on the inside here, so the motor can't hit it. So that's usually what the hot snot's more about, cable management, if anything. Yeah, Texas was a fun show. I saw George Gomez at the after party, because I was hanging out at the bar, of course, and then I realized it had become the Stern after party. And I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't be here since I technically work for Spooky now, but I still like hung out anyway. And yeah, so I hadn't talked to George Gomez in a while, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But yeah. But I did talk to Steve Ritchie. We were talking about he works for Jack now. He did the Elton John pin. So, yeah, he left Stern. I think he got jealous of Keith Elwin and left. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened. Steve's always a really cool guy. I think he has like really bad hearing. I think it was a combination of like being in a band and also liking to shoot guns. So, yeah, and it's actually gotten worse. That's what Mark was telling me, his brother. So you have to look him in the eye, and then you have to like make sure he can see your mouth, even with his hearing aid. So it's pretty bad. It must have been terrible, like when everyone was wearing masks. And it would be like living in a world of silence. Yeah. So I guess there's all my convention stories. You know, I would say like my celebrity advice. You got to think about, and I mean, I'm just like a old YouTube or old internet celebrity. It's not like it's, you know, but my advice would be think about. Yeah, it's not necessarily that someone might not want to like be, unless it's like someone who's a real jerk like Billy Crystal, but usually like if you're at a show or something, you're like, oh man, I want to talk to like, you know, Cliff Bleszinski or Mark Rain or Steve Ritchie. Like you got to remember, like at any point in time at one of these shows, they're probably heading somewhere. They've got to do something. They've got to meet someone. Like they're on some sort of schedule. Like if you see Kate Winslet at the supermarket, you know she's there to buy food. So just keep that in mind. Just be courteous of that. That would be the main thing. Yeah, yeah, but you know, if you're hanging at the bar, if everyone's hanging at the bar, then who cares, right? That's the thing. Oh, and then I would say my number one advice for like con etiquette is if people are eating, leave them alone. If you see them like eating food, wait until they're done. There you go. I should write a book. Con etiquette. Chapter 1. Use deodorant. Code beat, you can't do that because these controllers all have like DRM and lockout to like actually work on the consoles. You can use things like the Titan, the things that are used for like macros and stuff, but those things are awesome. Those things are way more expensive than just buying the controllers. Kate Winslet at the supermarket, yeah. Well, like if you were like at a Whole Foods in like New York City, like you would actually see where you actually see a lot of celebrities. So you should always just, you know, remember they have to shop for food too. Oh no, I just gave the trick away. How to meet celebrities. Go to Whole Foods in New York City. Isn't Walking Dead still technically on? That's hard to believe. I stopped watching when that guy beat up the guy with the baseball bat. It felt like misery porn. That's the best way to put it. Like misery porn. Also, the characters in that show are so stupid. The up button is a little messed up. Almost done. There's always one last thing, isn't there? Hey, 1.5 hours. See, that's pretty fast. Oh, John DeLance? Cool. Oh, I hate ribs. Yeah. I met LeVar Burton once. He's very short. Speaking of John DeLance. Yeah, did Q come back on that new Picard show? I can't remember. I didn't watch it. I heard he came back. And he was in Breaking Bad as well. Buttons like this, I kind of struggle with. It's hard to make them as nice as what the real controllers have. I wish there was a service that would like print or make like the rubber contacts and the carbon domes. If like PCBWay had something like that, I would totally order something, like make my own calculator. Don't worry, be happy there. Menard's terrible, not FCC certified Chinese junk section is basically gone. So it's right at the opening the store. I every time I go to Menards, I go over there and see if there's anything, but it's all gone. That whole section is just like it's like doorbell cameras and cheap lamps. All like the interesting stuff is gone. Sorry. Ben, Last of Us. Last of Us. I don't know. I never played that game. I heard it's really good. Yeah, tactile buttons are nice, but they don't feel as nice as like rubber buttons. They feel almost like body parts. Can you say nipple on YouTube? Yeah, I want to make a programmer calculator. I just haven't got around to it. Like the last time I was working on it was during the chip shortage, so I wasn't sure what processor I would use. I probably would use like a Cortex M0. I'm getting more like into the Pi Picos because we used it for the Game Badge project, but it's also it's a really powerful Cortex M0 because it's a dual core and it's got tons of RAM. Probably because it doesn't have flash space. Oh, my nard! Dumpster dive. David Jones, not Steve Jones. You know, if I ever go to Australia, I will definitely go visit David Jones. But I don't know. I've been to New Zealand, but I've never been to Australia. But I would definitely love to hang out with David Jones because I think he's great. And of course, he's got the great accent. I have this friend. Actually, it's the guy who made Labyrinth Pinball. We've been friends for a while, and he's Australian. And so I think it's like, oh, being friends with David teaches me Australian accent. So when I make Possumus 3, I can make my accent even more inauthentic because I listen to all these authentic Australian accents. Like, I could do an authentic Australian accent. I can do one easily. But, of course, if you're making a Possumus movie, you have to make a terrible Australian accent. It's just the law. A low-cost scientific graphing calculator. Well, they do have the, what's it called? The NUM works. NUM works. But the thing is, it's not really that much cheaper. It's like an open source graphing calculator, about like $125. TI was price gouging before it was cool. Like those calculators, it's just a total profit center because they know they can charge more for schools. That kind of thing I couldn't say when I was in the Ben Heck. All right, now I just need the bottom piece. Ooh, and how about a red cap? That'll look good. Yeah, I love watching Dave's videos about like debunking solar roadways and stuff because he like actually does math, and he has like a solar powered house, so it's not like he's against solar. He's just like, you've got to have math, unbelievable. You're gonna get bugger all out of this, and that's in optimal settings. The sun's not even shining. That and Hyperloop. Hyperloop is so stupid. Was it Richard Branson and Elon Musk thought that was a good idea? It's like, oh my god. So dumb. Oh yeah, let's just have 200 miles of zero complete vacuum. That won't cost anything to run. It's like Hyperloop is like a plane, but you have to buy all of the land and fly it over. Stupid! Oh, I'm sorry. Unbelievable! Mad Cow seems like the highest odds of celebrities is eating places people can't afford to eat. Yeah, like Whole Foods, perfect example. Yeah, you know another TV celebrity I can't believe is still alive is that guy from what was his show where those rednecks went around catching bounties? Dog the Bounty Hunter. It's like, oh man, I got a paintball gun. I'm gonna go arrest this guy and tell him about Jesus. It's like, dude, like eventually you're gonna roll up on someone who's got more than a paintball gun, and then then your show's gonna be over. But yeah, he was in Hawaii as well. So I'm surprised. Surprised that guy didn't. He's still alive, so good for him. Thunderfoot, yeah, I like Thunderfoot's videos as well. The Hyperloop. Oh my god. I have no idea why would you even try to make something like the Hyperloop? It just boggles my mind. It's like, oh yeah, let's have 200 miles of vacuum in the most earthquake-prone state in America. What could go wrong? I mean, well, think about it, like, if you were like a bad person and you're like, oh, I've got this 50 cal I got from the cartel. Oh, look, it's the Hyperloop. That's all it would take. Like, and what would stop them? It's so stupid. Oh, man, how would you? And if the Hyperloop car stopped, how would you get them out? You can't just open it up because it's a sealed tube. So you'd have to depressurize the whole thing. So you'd have to do it. So like, what if someone was having a heart attack on the Hypertube and they're like, I can't breathe, I'm dying, and the Hypertube stops moving? So what are you gonna do? You can't just are you gonna take a hole saw and like cut a hole in the Hyperloop? Oh, and then it explodes. Okay, so you can't do that. So you're gonna have a big door on the Hyperloop to get them out. Oh, well, I can't do that because that makes steering way harder. Unbelievable! The idea you come up with when you're stuck in traffic. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, then Elon Musk had the the underground tunnel thing. We're like, that's almost even worse in a way. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a whole bunch of cars piled up in a tunnel underneath Los Angeles, and it's all autonomous. And one broke down car, and the whole thing would come to a screeching halt. This is like Solar Roadways. It's like all it would take is one police chase where the criminals are driving on rims for the last 5 miles. It would destroy every solar road they roll over. Unbelievable! So you know why? You know why solar roadways? They still are trying it in some places. The reason it works as a scam is because governments have complete dominion over roads. They own the roads, they have control of the roads, so it's something like the government can't come in and force me to put a solar panel on my roof, but they could cover the road in front of my house with solar panels because that's their property. So that's why you get the government people who are trying to be green, and they're like, okay, well, we have dominion over roads. Oh my gosh, we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And that's why solar roadways continues to trick politicians, because it's like a perfect grift, because they're like, oh, this is something we have dominion over. That's the key. Even though, aside from like an active volcano, any other place is a better place to put a solar panel. Almost done? Well, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, a plane... Well, actually, okay, a heart attack on a plane, like, the stewards are trained in that. They have defibrillators. So, I mean, are you going to have trained stewards on Hyperloop who are trained in emergency situations? I don't know, maybe not. I think I should get a black cap for this. That would look better. Where are my caps? Nope. There we go. Solar underground. You know, the best place to put solar panels would be orbiting the sun. Like, kind of like a Dyson sphere. There's another Star Trek reference for you. There's this one spot in the visible sky that's, I think it's called like the Great Blank Spot or something. It's a section of like the observable universe that's like really dark, and some people think it's because a super advanced race of aliens covered all the stars with Dyson spheres in that part of the universe. That was a concept before it was on Star Trek Next Gen. That's the episode where they find Scotty trapped in the teleporter beam buffer. He's like, I've been trapped in this buffer for 80 years. Oh, this new Enterprise is amazing. Well, yeah, I mean, C-Tree, probably the only way to do it. And I thought about this a lot. Like, if you actually wanted, I don't know if it's possible, but I guess if you had the technology to cover a sun with a giant hollow sphere, then you could probably also quantumly tunnel electrons. That would probably be the best way to do it. Who knows? Maybe that's how it works. You know, maybe there's a Dyson sphere, and it's quantum tunneling electrons. I don't know exactly how that would work, but to a UFO, and that's actually its power source. Who knows? I mean, spooky entanglement totally exists, so maybe you could transfer energy. I mean, you'd basically be hacking the universe to do it. And who knows, maybe, like, if it's a simulation, then you probably could hack the universe. That would be how you would do that. That would be the only way. Think about that. Kind of weird, huh? Solar panels orbiting the sun, but can we drive on them? Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about spooky entanglement that's kind of interesting is, like, it could actually point to a simulated universe. Because if you have two particles that are entangled, and by entangled I mean they could be affecting each other as like, if you think about it like a computer program, and you're like, oh, okay, like this particle is receiving temperature because Ben sat on it, which means the particle next to it is receiving temperature because Ben sat on it, blah blah blah, like you cascade it. So if you think about it like in a simulation, like if you were to change the XYZ coordinates of those particles, but they were still connected in code, then they would be entangled with their states. So it's one of those things, kind of like the double slit experiment, where it's like, you know, this would make a lot more sense if we just, if you know, this was a simulation. Yeah, who knows? It's probably something more like, it's probably some underlying fabric of reality that we can't possibly comprehend yet. That's probably more likely. A little bit of hot glue here because it's rattling a little bit. What would have you jacked you overseas? Make all the hot ladies want you. Be famous, rich. Okay. Limited precision floats. Well, yeah, I mean, you could say that the constant C is, or a Planck length would be the minimum resolution. It's entirely possible. There's another weird phenomenon like photons of light. They never actually dissipate. Once they go a certain enough distance, they turn into pulses, like on, off, on, off. So that's kind of weird too. I don't know, like if I had like unlimited funding, if I had like, you know, like CERN, I mean, well, CERN is the same thing. They're basically trying to break reality. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to like experiment with that. So like, because you just think it's like some crazy outlandish concepts like, is quantum entanglement a feature of a simulated universe? And then try to break it in such a way that you could actually get something useful out of it. Like quantum tunneling of energy. It'd be like the plot in the Doom remake. Energy, they called it. See, the thing is, if you had a simulated universe, someone might be like, oh man, you'd have to render and track like 60 quadrillion Googleplex centillion particles of atoms in the universe or whatever. It's like, no, you wouldn't. You'd only have to render what the NPCs, us, can perceive. Like, you wouldn't have to render the inside of a tree until I chop it down, for instance. Or you wouldn't have to render my stomach until I have an operation. Like, if that's how you were doing it. Which could also explain, like, the double-slit Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where the value of something changes when it's observed. I know some people are like, oh, that's because of the way light moves in a wave, but it's still really weird. It doesn't make sense. This one looks like it's working. I don't want to talk about climate change. Although I am definitely pro-environmentalism. Bobbyverse? No, I don't know what that is. Human bodies would make terrible batteries. Well, yeah, because human bodies are furnaces, not batteries. That would be the twist ending to, like, Captain Planet. It'd be like, Captain Planet, we have removed all carbon emitters from planet Earth. And he would be like, no, children, we haven't removed all carbon emitters from planet Earth. What do you mean, Captain Planet? You. And that's the twist Twilight Zone ending. Yeah, Gabriel, you're talking about the well, there's not electricity in the atmosphere. They use the atmosphere or the ionosphere to transmit energy. That's what the HARP antenna array does. And yeah, it was based off the work of Nikola Tesla. So Tesla was about, yeah, he was big into wireless energy transmission, and he did a lot of it. I mean, it wasn't like it was a ton of electricity, but he was doing that in the 1800s. But what people think they do with the HARP, well, I was obviously several layers to that, but one of the more benign things is that you would bounce signals off the ionosphere, and then you'd use it to penetrate deep into the ocean for communications with subs. But I mean, it is transmitting signals or bouncing the signals off of the off our atmosphere. So it's not about getting electricity from the atmosphere. It's about using it as a conduit for the signals. And then if you go on Google Earth and look at the HARP in Alaska, it's blacked out. But it's definitely a real thing. Because I think it was BP, the gas company, the oil company. BP found like a ton of natural gas in Alaska. What a shock, right? And they're like, oh, we found all this natural gas, but it's so remote that it's not feasible for us to get it, you know, to pull it out and sell it. And then the government's like, oh, well, but then they're like, do you want to build something really high energy up here? And then you have unlimited power to run it. And they say that's why the HARP laser is up there, because it's next to like this huge, otherwise not feasible natural gas source. And everything I've said with the HARP is not even the conspiracy theory stuff. It's just the facts. And it is based off Nikola Tesla's work. Yeah, it's more about communication, yes. Hey, 3 controllers in one day. That's not too bad. And I did this one in under 2 hours. That's more normal. Von Neumann probes? Oh, von Neumann, that's the name of a computer architecture. It's like what? Yeah, von Neumann is like a C64 and Harvard is like an Arduino. The Bell Island Boom? No, what is that? Oh, blue screen. Yeah, yeah. Your computer has stopped working. We are collecting some information. I'm sure some of you have seen this channel, but if you like weird conspiracies and weird history, there's a phenomenal YouTube channel called The Wi-Fi, WHY, and it's very interesting, although some of it is very tinfoily, but yeah, they talk about all sorts of stuff like this. I would highly recommend it. And there's a talking fish. It's very Fox Mulder. Tesla's spirit box? No, I've never built a spirit box. It was Tesla wasn't into spiritualism, was he? I mean, that was the right era for it, but I mean, I think Edison was, but I don't think Tesla was. I don't know. I don't know that part of history. Huge bang was heard at Bell Island just before noon. No, I haven't heard of that. So what caused the bang? I mean, it seems like a lot of things. Well, is there another phenomenon? It's like ghost noises. There's not. Oh, I don't mean like spirit noises. I mean like there's some parts of the world where you'll just randomly hear like screeching sounds or like it sounds like a crashing airplane, but it's caused by the weather or some phenomenon. I wonder if that's what would cause an explosion sound. Yeah, I don't know much about von Neumann, unfortunately. All I know about him is that his name is used for computer architecture. The Bell Island Boom. Yeah, wasn't there something in the ocean like that too? It was like called the blip or something. It was a similar thing where it was like a huge ocean explosion sound, and they caught it once and they've never heard it again. Yeah, seance guns, yeah. Spirit box in process inventing the radio. Yeah, I mean, there was that big movement back then because it was spurred on because, you know, we'd had the Civil War, and so obviously the Civil War killed more Americans than any war ever because, of course, everyone was an American. And yeah, so then you had you had a record number of like bereaved widows. And that's what actually kicked off that whole thing. It's like, oh, my boy got killed in the war. I hope I can see him again. And the charlatan's like, I can let you talk to your dead husband. Yeah, come over here. So, that whole thing was actually, it was a byproduct of all the death of the Civil War. Yeah, I mean, Boogie Darkwings, they had that with crystal radios. Like, you know, the power of a radio signal is enough to, like, you know, create sound. Like that's a pretty common thing, like just picking that up. The crystal radios, they would do that. I mean, they did that in like World War One. They would make, I think we did on the show too, like where you use a blued razor blade to make a diode. It actually works. It's very quiet, but it works. The Vatican has a spirit box. Oh God. Oh yeah, the Vatican also allegedly has a what's it called, chrono viewer too. So there's a lot of things that are allegedly at the Vatican. We are Legion of von Neumann. So what is a von Neumann probe? I have no idea. Masses of ice. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I assume he was a scientist. Hello, John. Probably wrapping up the stream here pretty soon, but the chronovisor, yeah. I mean, who knows if that sounds like a very weird thing. I bet the Vatican has some pretty crazy stuff, though. I mean, let's be honest. There's no way they don't have a bunch of crazy stuff tucked in those vaults. God knows what's there. Von Neumann probe is a self-replicating interstellar probe. Oh, like when Rom built the self-replicating mines to stop the invasion of the who are the bad guys in that show? Oh, the Dominion, right? It's like, brother, I've made mines that will reproduce. And then Quark's like, we could sell those mines for a lot of money. He's made a movie? I had no idea. Game Child. No. I thought making independent films, it's kind of dumb. I don't know, it's a lot. It costs a lot of money. I might be nice to make one more before I'm dead, but I don't know. We were going to make Possum 3 in 2021, but, you know, I was a bit of a messed up time period, so that never happened. Who knows? As long as I can still walk and move around, I guess I could make something. Geordie LaForge wears a chronovisor. Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Vatican's a pretty crazy place. It's basically their own government. It's like Disney World in Italy. Well, Mac, I've always been around. I just don't really I don't do YouTube videos. You know, I don't do one every week. I don't do corporate YouTube anymore. So it's just when I feel like it, or if it's on a Sunday and I'm streaming to cope with the fact that I had to work all day on a Sunday. That's mostly when. Hex Cinematic Universe Phase 4. Who knows? We were working on a movie script for a while. Actually, David Van Ness and I were working on it, but we can never get the funding to go. And actually, I think we were going to film it in Australia because Australia still has like really insanely good tax credits. Kind of like too good, you know. Well, a lot of places do that, but like if you had like $1 million budget, like $1 million Australian dollars, it's like if you, I think, if you shoot it there and and then if Australian people are involved, and at least one of the creators is Australian, they'll write you a check. They'll basically write you a check for like 30% of what you spent. And that's the same reason Disney makes all their movies in Georgia, because the Georgia government will, the state of Georgia, they just write them a check. It's insane. That happens all over, really. But England's really big for that now too. So a lot of movies are being shot in England again because they have insane tax breaks. Dollary dues, yeah. What's the Ashens movie about? Is it about a couch with like junk on it? You know, I didn't mind the Angry Video Game movie. I thought he did an okay job with it. It was a little self-indulgent, but it was dumb that he shot it in Hollywood, though. I think he was just being autistic or something, or he just wanted to like feel like I'm a movie maker now. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Palmer. Yeah, people seem to like those MCU videos. There was you know when I stopped doing the show and I had more time because I kind of like took like several months off. It was fun like experimenting with like really wimpy like microcontrollers like those AT Tiny 10s, and then I made a video about it. It's just kind of fun. It's kind of like just fun to explore those really weak things and see what you can get them to do. So I like that stuff. I haven't had as much time to do that lately, but maybe in the future. Late Night with the Devil, shot in Melbourne. Okay, cool. Australian people. Ashen's in the quest for the game child. Okay. Oh, is he looking for like some like mystical game system? I've got this piece of tat from the pound shop. It's the pop station. Didn't he like review like one of those like whole chickens in a can? God, that was disgusting. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I've never been in contact with the Red Letter Media people, but they're an hour east of me. They're just in Milwaukee, so you know, I don't know. Hey, if I ever run into them someday, who knows? But I don't know. I think it would be fun to try to drink Mike under the table. I think I might have a shot. I might be the only person that could do it. Yeah, that AT Tiny 10 video, that was like one of the top videos I ever did, like on my own personal YouTube. It was weird. I would look at the analytics for it, and it was like this weird graph. Like it would be like, and then like once a year, it would have this big spike, so it kind of looked like a long staircase. And that was a good video. I was really proud of that. I'm glad you liked it. I don't watch Red Letter Media as religiously as I used to. I mean, obviously I like that channel, but I don't know. I like movie stuff, but I guess I'm less interested than I used to be. Now, I also think, like, in hindsight, like, the Star Wars prequels, I mean, they had a lot of issues. Like, the directing wasn't very good, but now that we've seen the Disney stuff, it's like, you know, George Lucas was more talented than I think we gave him credit for. Because if you look at it, it's like, yeah, a lot of stuff sucks. But, well, you can look at stuff like, there's like YouTube videos like the Darth Jar Jar. Like, apparently they actually were going to have Jar Jar be. He was the Phantom Menace. But people hated him so much in the first movie that they abandoned the plans. There's videos of this on YouTube where you can see him like doing like Jedi mind tricks with his hands, and you can see him like mouthing what he wants characters to say, and it's like, it's pretty crazy stuff. I don't know, like, because if you watch that stuff, it's like, yeah, the acting is really stilted. It's like George Lucas managed to get terrible performances out of really talented people like Natalie Portman and Sam Jackson, but the stories were good because unlike the Disney Star Wars, they just draw from Disney. It's like inbred, whereas George Lucas drew from history. That's what made it better. Yeah, I don't know. Like, even a lot of the stuff like in the prequels, I think it'd be cool to like see like almost like an anti-Red Letter Media review of that, because yes, those movies have a lot of problems, but there is a lot of stuff that is, you know, it's more classical hero's journey stuff that Disney doesn't even bother to do, and George Lucas actually understood it. Even the weird stuff like the virginal birth of Anakin, that's actually a pretty common trope in like ancient mythology. It actually kind of makes sense in the story, unlike, "You are my granddaughter," which implies someone had sex with me. Ugh. Somehow Palpatine has returned. Yeah. There were memes, but they weren't necessarily good memes in the new movies. Yeah, think about how memeable the prequels were. Like, there's so many memes from that. And I think the reason that is because it was memorable. Like, you remembered everything on it. Like, the stupid accents and all, like, the dumb jokes. But you remembered it. Anakin's thesis. Okay, I'll look for that. I mean, yeah, you have it now where if someone says they have the high ground, they don't think about Sun Tzu, they think about Obi-Wan. So it's like they completely took over that concept from history. That's how well it stuck with people. See, I don't even think Force Awakens was that good. It's just a remake of Star Wars, and then I mean, I love Harrison Ford and all, but like, you know, Han Solo shows up, and it's the same thing with Blade Runner 2094 or whatever it was. Like, he shows up, and it's like, oh god, Grandpa's here. Like, and the movie loses a bunch of energy, and I actually think The Last Jedi is a better movie than Rise of Skywalker, but Rise of Skywalker is garbage because Last Jedi took the story nowhere, took forever to do it, and left them with nowhere to go. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, Rise of Skywalker was just a joke of a film. Just so stupid. Sand gets everywhere. Well, hey, it's fun talking about Star Wars, but I probably should stop doing anything remotely work-related for a little bit today. Vader versus Paul. Okay. Yeah, so thanks for everyone who stopped by. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you like streams, I guess I could do them again. I don't know. I usually don't sit down and make 3 of these a day, but if I get back to my sort of normal schedule of doing these one day and then doing pinball 4 days. See, if I did that, that would be like streaming during the day on a Monday. I don't know if anyone would really be around for that, but yeah, I don't know. It could be fun. And then, of course, I'll always, do my traditional Christmas time charity streams as well. Although I think this time we should just do the donations directly to St. Jude, so the $1 trillion company doesn't get a cut. Yeah, they really missed a trick. Like, they should have had Han, Luke, and Leia all together in Force Awakens, because then, of course, Carrie Fisher died. I mean, the really stupid thing was at the end of Force Awakens, Leia hugs Rey instead of Chewie. What the hell? I mean, oh my god, so stupid! She never even met Rey before! She doesn't know who this is! Oh, let's see. My dead husband's best friend. Ignore him. Who cares about him? Let's hug this random woman. Ugh. Though, what should we have expected after Star Trek Into Darkness, right? Alright, I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for stopping by. Have a happy, fun rest of your Easter. And yeah, if I'm going to stream in the future, I'll do like a community notes. I'll do like a community post on my on the YouTube channel if I'm going to do this again. Yeah, that's exactly right, C-Tree. The thing that's really stupid is Carrie Fisher died a full year before The Last Jedi was released. They could have easily swapped the deaths, because her character dies in the movie and then lives for no reason. Then Luke Skywalker dies for no reason. So dumb. Like, imagine if in Rise of Skywalker, an alive Luke Skywalker could have kicked butt, like he did in The Mandalorian. That's all people wanted to see. That's why people like Rogue One, because the movie's not that great, but at the end you get to see Darth Vader kick butt. That's what people want to see. It's so dumb. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for stopping by, and have a good evening.